Digidestined, it's Mike, aka Sanaku from Overground, and welcome back to the channel. And welcome back to the final video of the BT5 Rainbow series. Today we're going to be covering the color green. And I've noticed a bit of a trend when it comes to green. It's always the last color in the majority of our Rainbow series, and that's mostly because it's the hardest color for me to build. Green just has such a very expansive card pool where pretty much all of the cards in the color are playable and like good and effective, and so it's really hard to really pick and choose which ones are considered the quote-unquote best for any given deck or any given opportunity. And the other thing too with green is that it's really hard to build a central strategy around a central figurehead. Green overall always ends up being some sort of, good stuff, control hodgepodge, and it just takes on a different moniker depending on which top end you want to kind of shine the spotlight on, with the exception of Grand Quag OTK, of course. And what we have in front of us today is basically my take on what a BT5 green deck could look like. Not necessarily should, but could. And originally when I was going to make this video, I was just going to show green Imperial Digimon and some of the updates I got from BT5, but after everything was all said and done, literally the only update I got was Blitz Omni. But at the end of the day, the deck was pretty much exactly the same as what it was before. So with green as a whole, though, I didn't want to retread old territory. We already did this once between 1.0 and 1.5, where we did Rust Tyrannomon twice in a row. And then for BT4, we did Hercules Kabuterimon. I didn't really want to touch on that again because it's something that you've already seen, and it's a deck that doesn't necessarily change conceptually. However, Digi-Bursting as a mechanic continues to be improved on, and we continue to get more cards for that support in future sets, and especially in BT5. And you're going to see a lot of the cards in this deck specifically are tailoring to that mechanic specifically. So while this doesn't have a general end goal or a general main focus, the deck is basically a Digi-Burst deck at the end of the day. It has alternative win conditions and multiple ways to keep controlling the board. And a lot of this also comes from general card availability when it comes to green. I can't go wholeheartedly into Grand Quag OTK because I only own 2 of the jamming promo Palmon. I can't go wholeheartedly into a Reflezimon strategy because we only pulled 2 Reflezimon out of our initial boxes. So instead, we're just like we did with the yellow Lord Nightmon deck, we're kind of combining the minimal resources we have to try to create one cohesive strategy. And this is kind of based on my theory, what a genuine BT5 green deck could potentially look like. However, that does not mean that this deck does not have room for improvements. So with that being said, let's go through the card by card so I can kind of get what's in my head out into the ether. So starting off, we're playing 4 Yokomon and 1 Motimon. And this is the new Yokomon from BT5, where if it gets detached for a Digi-Burst effect, you can give one of your Digimon plus 2,000. And this is kind of the precursor to what the rest of the deck is going to look like, in the sense that I wanted all of my Digimon to either be strong enough on their own, where they don't need to have an extra inheritable to prove their worthiness, or to have some sort of Digi-Bursting ability, because if the remainder of the stack is all going to get trashed anyway at the end of the day due to these effect activations, I want to make sure that there was some value in that. So Yokomon is the first, literally bottom of the stack card that when we get detached for Digi-Burst is going to give us some value. And then when we go through the rookie lineup, we only have 4 cards that do that here, and it's Palmon and Lalamon. Palmon, as we've discussed with the Grand Quag OTK, gives your Digimon jamming, and Lalamon gets you to add it back to your hand. The other cards that we're playing are all just good generically effect-wise that can either increase your consistency or increase your matchup potential. So 4 copies of Goblymon. This is primarily for our download package over in our Ultimate section, because we are playing the full 4 Blossomon and the 1 allotted Argomon. And with HPD as well, all the 2-cost rookies allows us to put something cheap into play that we can download immediately to get our combos going. 4 copies of Tentomon. This is just an extra consistency piece to make sure that we can pick up the cards we need to keep going up our chain. And then to complement that with the other rookie we haven't discussed is just 2 copies of Terriermon. And again, just like every memory denier that we have in the game, it's just used to kind of keep our finger on the pulse of our opponent and to stop any crazy shenanigans memory-wise from taking place. And then with that being said, we're going to go into the champion lineup. So we're playing 4 copies of Weedmon, which is a new addition from BT5. And when he's detached for a Digi-Burst ability, you get to add memory plus 1. 4 copies of Vegemon. This is because it's just a very good standalone champion that doesn't necessarily need to have a good inheritable to stand up in the deck. It's a 1-cost to evolve, which is already great, especially when it comes to green, and it's a 4-cost to hard play. Weedmon is also a 4-cost to hard play, which is really important to mention, because that way this lowers the capacity for green to brick, because if you do not open a rookie, you have an 8 in 50 chance of also opening up with a playable champion that doesn't give your opponent a ton of memory, and also sets the stage up for you to evolve on top of it further. And then complementing that, we're playing 4 full copies of the Kabuterimon blocker suite, so we're just maxing out on our 1-cost evolutions that either give us an opportunity to get something beneficial from Digi-Burst, or just cards that are just good to play on their own. And then going into our ultimate lineup, we already discussed our Digisorption, I guess, package. And if you're unfamiliar with Digisorption, this is where you get to suspend a Digimon to play one of these for minus whatever the number that they list. So in this case, they also Digisorption 3, and they cost 3, so it reduces their cost by 3, which would make them free to evolve. And then we're just playing 4 copies of Lilamon to complement that, because Lilamon is probably the best ultimate in green right now, with the strong Digi-Burst ability of her own to help suspend our opponent's Digimon to just plow through them, as well as having the strong inheritable of when attacking, if we have a tamer, we can suspend one of our opponent's Digimon regardless, which is very important when it comes into the next level, which is going to be the level 6s. Now, in the level 6s, we're basically playing, again, a bit of a toolbox package, and it's going to be kind of a pick your poison, what do you need to do in any specific situation. So Nidhogg is here primarily for board control. It's to help us clear and keep tabs on our opponent. If they go wide, it ensures that we can have one giant dark hole effect that can pretty much clear out any small Digimon, as well as any Digimon who are suspended. And then Lilamon and stuff like Needle Spray will come into play to help us suspend anything that's over that 5,000 threshold, so Nidhogg can just completely eat everything on the board up. Grand Koagumon is here for our aggression options. If we can't play something like a Rookie Rest strategy, or if we're too busy controlling the board with something like Lilamon and Nidhogg, and we're not having many opportunities to attack into our opponent, this is where we're going to use Grand Koagumon instead to create big security plus swings to try to keep depleting our opponent's security while we keep them off their plays. Reflezimon is a new addition from BT5, and it has also a Digi-Burst ability where we can give one of our Digimon plus 2,000. And Reflezimon combos with the Grand Koagumon really well as well, because we can give the Grand Koagumon itself multiple security checks, and then if we leave one source underneath, we can go into Reflezimon on top, and then if we have the potential to have 2 more sources, we can detach the remaining 2, give an additional 2,000, as well as whatever extra security check we're able to get from the Grand Koagumon itself. And I say that under the pretense that a full stack is only 4 underneath, so you only get detached 2 anyway. However, if you have a second Reflezimon on top of the first one, then you would be able to get that 2 detach. I should have specified that, my apologies. So it's not a combo that's going to come very often because we only own the 2 right now, but if we had multiples, Reflezimon is kind of a cool way to keeping your Digi-Burst alive, because you're constantly giving yourself extra sources to detach. And the other cool thing about Reflezimon is that when a Digi-Burst effect is activated, one of your opponent's Digimon cannot attack or block until the end of the next turn. And because we have so many Digimon that trigger Digi-Burst naturally on their own, if you can stick a Reflezimon in play, any other effect further on that you'll activate with Digi-Burst will help you kind of control the board even further by stopping your opponent from attacking you even further, or preventing them freezing a blocker in play for you to potentially take something like a game shot. But back to the comment earlier about putting a Reflezimon on top of a Grand Koagumon. If you do not have the jamming Palmon, but you can create a situation where Reflezimon can gain that plus 2,000, you're essentially going to be swinging for 13, which isn't the best with Security Plus. However, if you were to evolve into something like a Chaosmon afterwards, then you're going to be upwards of 16,000, and at that point, any extra security checks that you carried forward from the Grand Koagumon will basically go through unimpeded, because 16 will beat any high-level Digimon in the format as it stands right now. And that's why we're playing the 2 Chaosmon as well, just to go over top of any of our Megas to kind of take out any extra threats that our opponents are setting up, and with that extra piercing damage, it's great. Chaosmon combos spectacularly well with the Grand Koagumon, because the extra security checks will always carry over. Then finally, the round of the deck, we're just going to play standard green stuff. We got 1 copy of Hidden Potential discovered and 2 copies of Needle Spray. This is to help us accelerate into our evolutions faster, as well as suspend our opponent's Digimon to either run them over or set up fuel for Nidhoggmon. And then we've got 2 copies of Mimi to make sure that we have the opportunity to go to 3 every turn, as well as accelerate our eggs and accelerate our board presence as well. So yeah, this is the green Digi-Burst deck for BT5, and it will be the final episode of the BT5 Rainbow series for us here at Overground. If you have any comments on how to improve this deck once we get our hands on more copies of Reflezimon, I am all ears, and I implore you to leave a comment and kind of give me an idea and a proper direction on where this deck would go. I do not have a lot of experience with green. It's probably the color I've played the least. I played it a lot in BT1, or 1.0 rather, but we also had a lot of time to play 1.0. And ever since we've had accelerated formats where they're kind of flying by really quickly, green is probably the color that we've had the least amount of hands-on time with. So I'd really like to change that this format and see if I can get more time in with the deck and learn its intricacies a little bit more. But if you do like what you see here, regardless of the lack of information or lack of confidence, please consider liking the video and commenting regardless if you have any other comments or suggestions you'd like to make elsewhere. And if you do like what we do with the Overground here, please consider giving us a subscribe as well and help us to reach our next subscriber milestone. But I have been Mike, aka Sanaku, once more for the Overground and the Rainbow series. I hope you enjoyed every other deck that we made up to this point. As always, if you have any requests, please leave them in the comment section below and we will work towards building a deck for you. Look forward to some gameplay videos with these decks in the near future, as well as other deck profiles as we continue to explore the rest of BT5. I am super excited for this format and I'm super excited to see what it brings. Anyway, thanks so much guys, and we'll see you all in the next one.